Hi, this is Tyler Turner, and I'm doing a quick video on my 2022 team talent formula, just to kind of go over an explanation of exactly how the rosters are looking going into the upcoming college football season, and more importantly, what it means. How the rosters look, I would say if you look at my 2000, I've done four. I've done 2019, 2020, 2021, and now 2022. See a lot of the same teams. Uh, there's a few new ones here and there. There's some teams that have gone up. They're farther up the rankings. There's some that are further down. And I'll probably look into a little bit more of that, exactly what's happened. It's caused some movement either up or down. And same kind of conference comparisons. The conferences that you think are stronger with talent are, and the ones that are probably not as strong are not. So a lot what you believe to be true is a way to put this. I would say right now the strongest conference is the SEC. Every single season that I've done this, they have had 8 to 10 teams in the team talent formula, top 25. Once again, this year they have 9. The Big Ten comes in at second. They have 5 teams in my top 25. I believe it was 5 last year. The year before, I think they've even gotten a little better. I think there were 3 or 4 the first year, same the second year, and then 5 the last couple of years. 3 tie between ACC and Pac-12. Really, when I look at the ACC and Pac-12, I think they're very similar. You hear about the Pac-12 being done. You hear that all over the media. Pac-12's finished. It's kaput, especially now that USC's left. Could be true. USC leaving was bad because they're one of the teams in the top 25 of my team talent formula. You're going to take that roster and you're going to put in the Big Ten, which will give Big Ten 6 as opposed to 5, and the Pac-12 3 as opposed to 4. But I still look at the just even without USC and pretty similar talent in both ACC and Pac-12. I think they're similar. The ACC's better basketball conference. They have the contract with ESPN. But are they really in that much stronger footing? I think they'd be better to align, do an alliance between the two, like a coastal conference. I think you would have a strong competitor to the ACC and the Big Ten. I'm sorry, to the SEC and the Big Ten. The Big 12 comes in last, and that's where I and the 2 teams in the Big 12 top team talent formula, top 25, is Oklahoma and Texas. Well, guess what? In 2 years, Oklahoma and Texas are in the SEC. So if you go by this year's rankings, and they're not going to change that much. I did 2019, I did 2020, I did 21, 22. Same teams for the most part. Give and take a couple. You're going to have 11 teams in the SEC. You're going to have 6 teams in the Big 10. You're going to have 0 in the Big 12. And then you'll have 3 in the Pac-12, 4 in the ACC. The Big 12, I just do not think have the brands and nor have the talent to even really, after the exit of Oklahoma and Texas, to really be a viable Power 5 conference. Whereas the Pac-12, Oregon, Washington, Stanford still carry talented rosters, especially Oregon. Oregon has a top 10 roster for the second straight year. And I'm an Oregon fan, and I see a lot like, they're going to be left behind. I mean, they still have a really good roster. They have a top 15 class this year in recruiting. They have 9 of the 13 players are blue chip rated. They have a top 10 5-star quarterback. They're still going to have a lot more talent than anyone else in the Pac-12 and anyone else in the Big 12. And they have the big brand with Nike and Phil Knight. So the worst that's going to happen is they're going to be the best team in those conferences. What's probably more than likely going to happen is they end up leaving to better pastures, unless the Pac-12 can do an alliance with the best of the Big 12 and the best of the ACC or something. I think there's a lot still to be figured out with that. Back to the formula. My top 10 this year, number 1, Alabama. By far the best roster. This is the most differentiation between them and anyone else. Last year, them and Georgia was pretty close. The year before, actually, Georgia, I believe, was 1. I'd have to go look back and look at it. And this year, there's more of a divide. Alabama has 48 top 100 players. By comparison, Georgia and Ohio State have 35 and 36. So you're looking at a double-digit advantage for Alabama. So this year really is the biggest divide when it comes to Alabama. They also have the Heisman winning quarterback in Bryce Young at quarterback. They have the best defensive player in college football in Will Anderson. You're just looking at a very, very good team, an experienced team, a talented team. Alabama with Nick Saban and that roster, and even with the experience they have, odds on. I just have a hard time seeing them not win the Natty this year. But stuff can happen. Injuries can happen. Stuff can happen. But I would bet on a coach that's won 6 national titles in 13 years. I would just bet on him. Number 2, Georgia. Still a very good roster. 15 5-stars, 35 top 100 players. Ohio State, number 3. 36 top 100 players, 14 5-stars. Those rosters are very similar. Strong second and third. A&M really is the team that made the biggest jump. Jimbo Fisher, think what you want about him. He's won a national title and he recruits well. He has the number 4 roster. He has 10 5-stars this year. He had only 5 last year. He has 29 top 100 players this year. Off the top of my head, he had about 16 or 17 top 100. His roster, the increase in talent was insurmountable from it was the year before. And the big thing was he had number 1 class, the best class ever in college football history. Number 5, Clemson. Clemson's still very solid roster. They have 12 5-stars. They have 24 top 100 players. They've teetered off a little bit the last couple cycles. Once this group of really good players, the Brian Brazies, Miles Murphy, Trent Simpson, some of these guys, Xavier Thomas, is it Thomas or Henry? Guys like that leave. DJ Ugalale. Clemson's going to take a step back unless they keep on recruiting at that level. They have a top 10 class right now for 2023. I do think they've taken a little bit. They've gone back. Clemson had moved toward the elite echelon when it came to recruiting. They've kind of gone back to more of their old recruiting, but their most talented teams have been the last couple, and they didn't make the college football playoff last year. They didn't even win the ACC last year, and the year before they lost in the semifinals. So maybe going back to the old way, maybe that'll bring them back some of those old results of winning or playing for the national championship. Number 6 is Texas. Texas has a very, very good roster. They have almost 60 blue chip players at 57. They have 6 5-stars, 13 top 100 players. Let's see if Sarkisian can get the most out of his talent. I still think if you look deeper at the roster, they have holes on the defensive side of the ball, front 7. So we'll see if they can kind of move forwards in a positive fashion. They've been terrible. They were 5 and 7 last year, so they have the talent. They're number 7. I misspoke. Number 6 is LSU. LSU, as always, will have a top 10 roster. They do that in their sleep. Problem is the instability the last couple of years at Orgeron. They brought in Brian Kelly. He's going to have a top 10 talent. He's a coach that took Notre Dame without top 10 talent to the college football playoff twice. They were 11-1 last year. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what he can do with that talent. There still is some depth issues because of the mass exit to the portal into the NFL, the one cycle. They still only have 76 scholarship players. That can come into play if there's injuries. Number 7 is Texas. Number 8, Oregon, my Ducks. 52 blue chip players, 5 5-stars, 12 top 100 players. They're in the top 10 in all those metrics. Blue chip players, top 100 players, 5-stars. Amazing job what Mario Cristobal did recruiting. I didn't quite see the results of the talent on the field the last 2 years. To see if Dan Lanning, the defensive coordinator of Georgia, can do a better job. If you can, then you could see Oregon be a college football team, a college football playoff team this year. College football. Hope they're a college football team. College football playoff team this year. I think they can do it. I think I think that there's a talent there in a conference that's not that good. Other than USC, no one else is really comparable talent wise. So if they can develop that talent and get those guys to play at that level, especially on defense where they have guys like Noah Sewell, Justin Flo, Brandon Dorless, DJ Johnson, Christian Gonzalez, some really, really talented guys that could go in the first 3 rounds of next year's NFL draft. If Lanning, who's a defensive coach who had one of the best defenses in college football history last year, if he can have them play to that ability, I could see with that talent, and he was able to keep most of them there. He signed a top 15 class. He brought in some good blue chippers, former blue chippers, in through the portal. I can see a good season by the Ducks. Number 10 is, I'm doing this off the top of my head, Oklahoma. Oklahoma lost a lot of the higher players, like the 5-star top 100, Caleb Williams, Mario Williams, those kind of guys, Jaden Hazelwood. But conversely, they did very well in continuing to bring in a good class. They brought in a top 10 class for Brent Venables, and they still have a lot of really good players on their team. We're able to bring Dylan Gabriel in at quarterback through the portal. So I still think Oklahoma is one of the favorites in the Big 12. Will they be a college football playoff team? We'll see. The rest of my top 25, Florida 11, 12, USC 13, Miami 14, Penn State 15, Michigan 16, North Carolina 17, Auburn 18. Hold on. I wanted to do this all the time in my head. 17, Auburn, 18, Florida State, 19, South Carolina, 20, Tennessee, 21, Nebraska, 22, Wisconsin, 23, Ole Miss, 24, Stanford, 25, Washington. You have to look deeper into these rosters. I think when you get past, honestly, if you get past Michigan at 15, I think you have to look more into where are these blue chippers, what has been the performance of this squad the last few years, where's the overall development going? Because you could have some teams that I think looks like they have more talent on their roster than they actually do. I also think they might have a couple players that transferred in that had really high blue chip ratings, but not necessarily have played to that ability, and it can skew their baseline talent because I'm going off just the recruiting rating. I'm not seeing that kind of talent in Nebraska. I was a Nebraska fan growing up. I still really like the Cornhuskers. They've yet to make a bowl game under Scott Frost. So I know they have number 21 most talented roster. I just don't know if that really is playing out. I have my questions about Stanford at 24. Not been very good the last couple of years. We'll see this year. Even 25, Washington, their coach got fired last year, so I don't know if they're really as good as even their talent says. Auburn's another one at 17. Tons of turnover. South Carolina at 19. You have Spencer Rattler that transferred in, and he obviously got benched last year at Oklahoma. Tennessee, 20. Brew McCoy is one of those 5 stars. He obviously got kicked out of USC. I just don't know if it's, and even Florida. I'm going to go to Florida. Florida has a lot of those guys guys like Justin Shorter, who was a top 10 player who went to Penn State that transferred in, and he hasn't played like that. But he adds up well on this formula. So you do have to look kind of deeper into some of these and see, is it some of the rankings boosted by transfers that maybe have not played to that level? But I actually think from what I see and what I understand of these rosters, I mean, it's, I looked at the freaks list by Bruce Feldman the other day, and he had the top 100 freaks, the best, most athletic, highest measurable athletes in college football. And about 41 of those athletes belonged on one of these rosters in the team talent formula top 25. 13 of these teams had multiple players on there. So, I mean, Stars matter. You've seen that article by Ari Wasserman on The Athletic. Stars matter. Talent matters. The teams with the most talent are going to be the ones competing year in, year out for college football playoffs. In my 4 years of doing this formula, only one team has not been in my top 25, and that was Cincinnati last year. And they were a group of 5 team, and they weren't very competitive. So I don't know if they should have even been there. So I think you really look in that. I think in my team talent formula of the 12 teams of my first 3 that have made the college football playoff, I think there's only been 2 or 3 that's not even in my top 10. So you're really looking at that top 10 to be the highest probability to have the talent to make the college football playoff and and definitely to play for the national title. It's only been top 10 teams playing for the national title. So continue to look at those rosters. Check out my team talent formula. It's updated. It's my 2022 team talent formula. That's my opinion. Enjoy this video, and I can't wait. College football season's a couple weeks away. Thank you.